Hello everyone. So Wonder Woman 1984 came out yesterday. Here in Canada, you have to find any basically on-demand service you can watch it on. Shaw, Amazon, Google, YouTube. There's a bunch of different ways to watch it. It's about a $30 rental, and this is a 2.5 hour movie. This is one of my most anticipated movies to come out this year. Of course, with the pandemic and a lot of things, it got delayed heavily, and now it is the biggest release to come out on your TV this year. So without further ado, let us finally talk about Wonder Woman 1984. So this is a sequel to the 2017 Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins. Gal Gadot reprises her role in this film. Chris Pine is back as Steve Trevor, and we also have the introduction of two new villains, Pedro Pascal playing Maxwell Lord, and Christine Wiig, who plays Cheetah. So from the title, this movie takes place in 1984, which is close to 40 years after the events of the first Wonder Woman film. And we get to see how Diana has adapted to life during this time, how she's coping with the loss of Trevor, and she's kind of become this vigilante hero who shows up every now and then to stop almost like petty little crimes, mall thefts, things like that. But with Maxwell Ward's plan to basically grant wishes to everyone and become a stone possessed by a trickster god in the Greek mythos, Wonder Woman has to take on a much bigger role where she has to fight her own desires while also fighting off the desires of everyone wishing for all of their desires to come true, which creates just chaos all around the globe. And it kind of begs the question a little bit if anyone remembers this happening in the DC universe, because this movie takes place before Justice League and everything else, but there's no mention of it, absolutely nothing. I'll get into that a little bit with the ending of this movie, but that is the main premise of Wonder Woman 1984. I do want to say that the acting in this movie is pretty well done for the most part. Pedro Pascal brings, like he does in every single role, he absolutely brings his all, and he did have a decent arc for Maxwell Lord in this movie, but he brought everything to the performance, and he's really high energy, and there's also a lot of personal stakes for him in this story, and they did a decent job kind of projecting that within his character. I found it kind of funny where in The Mandalorian, he's a father trying to do everything for a son who doesn't look like him, and unfortunately with some CGI and casting effects, that I find that was the same thing here, which made me laugh a little bit. But yeah, he does a really good job in this movie, and of course Gal Gadot does a really good job reprising her role as Wonder Woman in this movie. She does touch upon, again, a lot of personal grief that she's dealing with, and she does a really good job kind of nailing those emotions and bringing them onto the screen. And one of my favorite dynamics and parts of the movie was her relationship with Steve Trevor, where he is back in a way that I'm going to say for spoiler's sake, but you can probably guess from Maxwell's plan how Steve Trevor is able to come back. And their dynamic is really fun, where they, like I said, they kind of swap roles from the first movie, where Steve was teaching Diana about the world, and now 40 years later, she has way more experience than he ever did with the world. So that role's kind of flipped, and there's some good little dialogue and character moments and a little bit of romance that they share that was actually kind of touching and very personal, and I thought it brought a lot of emotion out in Diana, which was good to see. We do get to see a little bit of Themyscira again in this movie and learn about their customs and their history and some old warriors from the past. Those scenes were fun to watch. They were pretty decent. I will go to now into Kristen Wiig's Cheetah. Not a fan of it personally. The look of it when she does go into her full form was really good. The fight scene between her, there's two fight scenes between Wonder Woman and Cheetah, one where she's in her full form and one where she's not. The one where she's in her full form is pretty slick and moves decently well. The first one just felt a little too cheesy for me. I found that the script that she was given, all the scenes where Cheetah came off really, really cheesy for me, and I couldn't get into her character because she was just such really spoiled and arrogant, and there wasn't really any redeeming factors with her. She wasn't a secret agent like she was in the comic books. There's none of that backstory. She's just someone who wants to be noticed this time around. And the whole premise of this movie kind of ends up being be careful what you wish for, which very lackluster for me. They did a decent job with Maxwell Lord's arc, but I found Cheetah just didn't nail the landing for me at all because it wasn't accurate, nor it didn't really do anything to push Cheetah forward as a character or add to the universe, which I found a lot of this movie didn't do either. Like I said, it's just kind of did everyone forget about the events that happened in this movie in the time that the Justice League and everything's taking place. It just didn't do anything to add really to the characters except for bring out some emotion in Diana and have her move on from dealing with the loss of Steve. I feel like that's really all it added to the character, and like I said, it just didn't do anything to push the DCEU forward. Like I said, this movie is 2.5 hours long, and it is really dragged out. At the end of this movie, I felt like I was watching it for 5 hours. There were scenes where I was just slumped over and just trying to like wake myself up, sit up straight, get back into it. But it just drags on very, very long with, like I said, not really much substance, not much to add to everything that's going on. Just a lot of dialogue. When it gets into the fight scenes, a lot of the CGI and a lot of the movement doesn't look good. It it just really confused me how I thought the CGI and movements and everything looked so good in the first Wonder Woman, and especially the rest of the DCEU. But now this time around, everything felt so cheesy and low budget and put together, very rushed. Movements feel weird. Diana's whip is like juggling between slow-mo and really bad lighting effects. And the fights aren't really all that exciting either, where I have trouble where in movies, when Cheetah's introduced, of course, she has someone equal to herself that she's able to fight through. Again, that annoyed me a little bit because that's not who Cheetah is. When God-like figures, like Wonder Woman is, go up against regular humans, it makes for really boring action sequences. And there's a scene in the mall where she's basically just swinging. She attaches a rope from one person, swings to the other side, punches the other dude, does the same thing, and it just, the weird pendulum movements really mess with me. Even to there's a highway chase scene where, I don't know, it just didn't look like it was edited properly, filmed properly, and a lot of the CGI was just really blurry, fuzzy. It just really threw me off, and it took away from the fight scenes, which weren't really anything special themselves. It was a little tough too that unfortunately Steve Trevor, as happy as I am to see him back, felt more like comic relief this time around, where he does have some action sequences that he gets into, but it's just him throwing a punch or two, and that's all that he's really able to add to the fight scenes. Again, there's that dynamic that he has with Diana being brought back and realizing that he has to let her go so in order she can move on and become the hero that she kind of deserves to be and like truly become Wonder Woman. But there isn't just a lot for him to do in this movie, which made his appearance...
You know, I'm not so keen on this one. I figure you are, but you know what? I'm ready to go.
I think we can do better.
Parachute pants?
Yeah.
Does everybody parachute?
Kind of revolves around, but at the same time too, throughout most of the movie, it felt like, how is this opening scene really connecting to anything except more than a quote she says later on in the movie? It just felt like, I get that it touches upon those themes in the same way, but it doesn't add anything to Wonder Woman's character because she learned her lesson then, and she doesn't really do much to teach everyone else at the end. Again, the way that they stopped the plan was just really cheesy to me, overdrawn for not really much of a satisfying conclusion to this whole movie. It did really feel like a lot of this movie could have been cut out, which is unfortunate because somewhere in this movie there's a really, really good storyline, but you can't go into this movie expecting the big fight scenes, really cool armor, Wonder Woman getting her powers, even to scenes where she's whipping on the lightning bolts. Didn't really feel like it was all that exciting to me, just because it was such a drag to get through when I knew that really early on I could tell exactly what the conclusion was going to be and that it wasn't going to add anything to the characters or to the world. It was really unfortunate and a big disappointment for me because I was really looking forward to this film and thinking like the huge success and how much I love the first Wonder Woman. Just none of that translates here. It's a completely different movie, a completely different style that I really just don't think works well with the DCEU and just who Wonder Woman is as a character and who they set her up to be in Batman vs Superman, Justice League, and even from her first solo appearance. It's just sometimes I felt like this movie was made in the 1980s or 1984, just in terms of like the wonky CGI, the pacing, and trying to add romance, action, character moments, comedy. There was just way too much in this film, which I found a lot of 80s superhero movies were, and I don't know if that was what they were going for in this movie, but it just didn't translate well to the modern era, to Diana's character, and like I said, the setup of the entire DCEU, which was just, like I said, unfortunately a big disappointment for me. And with all this taken together, this is why I have to give Wonder Woman 1984 a 5 out of 10. It just could have been so much better, and I feel like there was a great premise and a great story here, just unfortunately didn't land out all that well. There wasn't really much tied up with the end of Maxwell Lord, not really too much with Cheetah, or just how the world was going to be changed by the events that happened in this film. But please in the comments let me know what you thought about Wonder Woman 1984 and which DCEU movie you're most excited for next. And of course, if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. You can check out all the other videos, movie reviews, everything else that I do on this channel through my playlist down below. If you like what you see, of course, subscribe, turn the little ringer on if you want to know when I upload new videos. But yeah, awesome guys, you can check out Wonder Woman 1984 wherever streaming or rental services are available to you.